Tonight, police in Ohio releasing new body cam footage showing a man who became unresponsive during his arrest, was later pronounced into hospital. His last words heard in the footage, "I can't breathe." In the video, we hear Frank Tyson yell those words out at least 7 times as cops try to subdue him, with one officer putting a knee on his upper back for about 40 seconds. We are only going to show you that moment once, and we have to warn you here, it is incredibly disturbing.
All right, peace and blessings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Richard Taylor, and the incident that you just saw led to the demise of 53-year-old Frank E. Tyson on April the 18th, 2024, earlier this year in Canton, Ohio, or Stark County. These two officers, 24-year-old Camden Birch and 24-year-old Bo Shanage, have been recently charged with reckless homicide in this incident. Now, the two officers were charged in November, early November, after a 6-month-long investigation. Now, this case resonates with me, and it probably will with you, because during the video footage that you will see, you will hear the man scream, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe," while an officer's foot or knee is on his neck. Now, we all know the situation with George Floyd that happened a little over 4 years ago. And this case is once again eerily similar, of officers already having restrained the man. The man in this video is laying on his stomach with his hands already cuffed, and they're continuously putting pressure on this man's neck while he's laying on his stomach. Now, anybody ever laid on their stomach with somebody on top of you, you know that it is very hard to breathe, whether you're wrestling or you're in football, whatever the case may be. When you're laying on your stomach, it's hard to breathe. So this demise of Frank Tyson was ruled after an investigation as a homicide. Now, how did this incident occur? It is said that Mr. Frank Tyson had ran his car into a utility pole. And after he hit the pole, he allegedly got out of the car and ran into a local bar. And the police got the call. Those two police officers came. It is obvious from the video that you're going to see, he was very irate, maybe even intoxicated. And he was a little combative. As soon as the officers got in the building, a scuffle ensued. They put the man down, and then, you know, they held the knee on the neck, and then he laid motionless for 5 minutes before they even checked for a pulse. Now, during the interim of that time, they're making jokes. One of the police officers said, "Yeah, I've always wanted to be in a bar fight. Ha ha ha." While the man is laying motionless. Now, when they finally check for a pulse and, you know, realize that the man is not breathing, that is on then, and only then is when they call the paramedics. They attempt to render medical aid, and that was useless. He was pronounced deceased at the scene. So I'm going to show you the video real quick, and you guys let me know what you think in the comments.
And video released by Canton Police shows the last few moments of Frank Tyson's life on April 18th. Canton Police are apprehending Tyson after a series of events led to his arrest. Some of his last words in this 35-minute and 40-second video were, "I can't breathe." After his last words, it shows at least a 5-minute period.
Now you see right there where he's already subdued and not moving. They have his legs folded up in a hog tie position. Now, once again, why would they need to do that if the man is already subdued?
Period, where he's laying motionless on the floor before police check for a pulse. And now, the Stark County Coroner's Office ruling his a homicide. According to the certificate 3 News obtained, there are 2 causes of the immediate cause is cardiopulmonary arrest in association with physical altercation and prone restraint. According to the certificate, this happened within minutes. The second cause of death has to do with underlying conditions, which the coroner's office lists as ischemic cardiovascular disease and acute intoxication by cocaine and ethanol. On the line where the certificate says to describe how injury occurred, the document reads, during arrest.
And so, there you have the diagnosis from the medical examiner. They said the initial cause of demise was asphyxiation due to, pressure, or restraint. And then, of course, they're going to throw the toxicology report where he had cocaine, ethanol, and alcohol. But as the medical report or the coroner's examiner's final report said that this happened during arrest. So these 2 young 24-year-old men went into the bar and without any sort of de-escalation techniques, just immediately get into a grapple, turn the man over, knee on his neck. Even after they already have him subdued, they're going to fold his knees up like a pretzel. That just shows the dominating demeanor or the dominating attitude that a person has to do that to a person who is already subdued. Now, even though those officers were charged, they were only charged with, once again, reckless homicide. Now, that is a 3rd-degree felony, like a Class C felony, and it only holds a sentence of 3 years and a $10,000 fine. Yet, this man has lost his life. And as usual, the officers were placed on paid administrative leave until the charges came out. Now, I'm not sure if they are still on paid administrative leave or not. Possibly so, because, in America, especially police officers, they are innocent until proven guilty. Now, the officers have only been on the police force for a total of 2 years. And so within that training and 2-year period, they have obviously learned some bad tactics in their training. But I'm going to show you some more of the footage real quick so you can just see how callous and careless these officers were while the man laid motionless on the floor.
Tonight, police in Ohio releasing new body cam footage showing a man who became unresponsive during his arrest was later pronounced at a hospital. His last words heard in the footage, "I can't breathe." In the video, we hear Frank Tyson yell those words out at least 7 times as cops try to subdue him, with one officer putting a knee on his upper back for about 40 seconds. We are only going to show you that moment once, and we have to warn you here, it is incredibly disturbing.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't. Get out of my neck. I can't breathe.
That's the story right there. I'll be glad to hear it for you.
Okay. I can't breathe.
You're fine.
Yep.
Shut up.
This all happened last Thursday when Tyson allegedly crashed his car into a pole in Canton before running into a nearby bar.
So you hear the officers and you hear him just struggling. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Now, that is a person really who can't breathe. And you hear the officer say, "You're fine. Shut the F up." With no regard for this man's life. And they're only going to give them a cookie cutter, butter cookie charge of reckless homicide, which only carries 3 years.
You can see here police finding the damaged pole and what they say is Tyson's car nearby before bystanders directed the officers into the bar where Tyson was. An altercation, a tussle between Tyson and the officers starts nearly immediately. That's when they start trying to take him to the ground. The coroner says Tyson's case is still pending. The officers involved are on paid administrative leave while officials investigate. There is, of course, some very obvious overlap with the George Floyd in Minneapolis here, who was my police officer who kept his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 10 minutes as he too cried out, "I can't breathe." Floyd and his last words becoming a rallying cry for the Black Lives Matter movement, spurring huge protests against police brutality in this country. NBC's Dana Griffin is following this one for us. And Dana, we'll get to that overlap again, not an apples to apples comparison, but let's start with this video, which shows almost everything from start to finish over the course of 35 minutes. Explain that and where things go from here.
And I want to walk you through that timeline. And I think there are 3 key moments here when you look through this video that lasted some 35 minutes from the time they arrived. 40 seconds, an officer kept his knee on Frank Tyson's back. And then it took about 5 minutes, 29 seconds between the time he last said, "I cannot breathe," and the first time we actually see officers check his pulse. An additional 3 minutes go by before they start doing CPR. Now, I think what's most disturbing about this video, as you mentioned, they weren't holding him down for several minutes as people pleaded with officers to ask them to get off, but it's the what happened after he was in handcuffs. And you notice that he was very combative, yelling out, "Call the sheriff." And there's actually a woman in that video who says, "No, they're here to help you." So it's clear that he's in some sort of mental crisis or health crisis here. And even when officers get him handcuffed, he doesn't make a peep. To go from being so combative to not saying a word should have been the first indication. You later see the officers making jokes about, at least one of those officers making a joke about always wanting to be in a bar fight. And it wasn't until they looked down and realized something's not right here that they finally call an ambulance. But it still took several minutes even after that ambulance was called for them to start administering CPR.
So you see a 40-second knee on the man's back. And then they take the knee off and he says, "I can't breathe for the last time." And then 5 minutes go by before they even check for a pulse. And the lady makes a great point. He's went from very combative. Now it's obvious, once again, he's going through a mental health episode or a intoxication episode. Yet and still, these officers could not realize, okay, with that, he just all of a sudden is so quiet until then they check for the pulse, and then they wait another 3 minutes to even administer CPR. Now, mind you, she said the video was 35 minutes long. So a lot happened within that time. And I'm pretty sure those white officers were like, "I'm not putting my mouth on him. Who you do it, you do it, you do it." But they had careless disregard for that man's life, and I think the charge should be upgraded from a class C, to a class A, because once again they are in a position to protect and serve, not to seek and destroy. And that is what they went and sought that man out for, hitting a light pole, for driving drunk. Now, he is no more.
Listen to what else they said during that body cam video.
Can you calm down?
Yeah, he might be out.
Breathing? Does he have a pulse?
I didn't feel him. Can you tell medics to step it up? It was not responsive. I don't know if I can feel a pulse.
So both of those Canton police officers are now on paid administrative leave as the department investigates. And actually, there's a state department that's actually taking over this investigation. And the mayor says that they plan to be very transparent about what comes out in that investigation. Hallie?
We talked about how Tyson's death is coming nearly at the 4-year anniversary of George Floyd. There were so many promises of police reform back then, including, in some instances, the suggestion for reforming tactics that restrict the way that a suspect can breathe. Talk us through that piece of this, Dana.
Yeah, and I think, Hallie, just those haunting words of "I can't breathe," we've heard in several cases where people were killed or where they died after pleading with officers to help them. And this was the same plea that this man made in this video. And I think with a lot of police departments after the George Floyd, there were talks about, you got rid of the carotid chokehold because of what happened to George Floyd. There was talks about not keeping detainees in that prone position with their faces down. A moment you saw this person with his face in the carpet. And so it raises the questions of why was he not flipped over? Why was he not checked on immediately after being put in those handcuffs? And a lot of those questions will hopefully be answered in this investigation. Hallie?
And so there you see once again the officers did he calm down? He's no longer living. Yeah, I think he might be out. Or tell medics to step it up. But this is once again a case of the political posturing. They compared it to George Floyd, and everybody got up in arms. Everybody was rallying around from state to state, nation to nation. But yet nothing has changed. Nothing has changed with the de-escalation techniques. But also it just always seems that only the black people have to die in this situation. White people get high, white people run lights, white people hit and run, white people use drugs, white people are combative in bar fights and combative in arrests. But why is it always the majority of these unalivements have to be a black person? Maybe it goes back to the history of the police, who were originally slave catchers. But nevertheless, we're going to keep an eye on this. Once again, the charge is only carrying 3 years. Will they even get convicted? That remains to be seen. But this is somewhat of a step in the right direction, where officers are now being charged. You see the other officer from yesterday in the Takia Young case, also in Ohio. What are they doing in Ohio? That officer was charged with 4 counts of homicide. So these officers got off light. I wonder what the police unions and all those political pundits and police enthusiasts will say or do to try to get these gentlemen off of this charge. You let me know in the comments. 919-587-7782. Peace and blessings. Y'all have a blessed night.
From local stories to Wayne County news, get ready to dive into everything happening in North Carolina with Taylor House Publishing. Got a story to share? Shoot us an email at taylorpublishinghouse@gmail.com. If you're looking to publish your book or need some top-notch mentorship, we've got your back. Join the excitement with the one and only Richard Taylor, right here at Taylor House Publishing. Speak with Richard directly at 919-587-7782. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and invite your family and friends to watch.
From Wayne County to the Carolina coast, Taylor House brings the news you love most. Tune in on YouTube, don't miss a beat. Local stories that keep you on your feet.
Taylor House, we got the scoop.
Taylor House Publishing.